Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You will know.
I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. Hey, boy, don't feel my world untrue. Yeah, I want to talk to you. My world can be true if you do what I tell you to. I want to talk to you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Medical Marijuana Radio for Saturday, the 4th of April, 2015. I'm your host, Larry Love. We're here every Saturday night, 7 p.m. live. We pre-recorded this show this evening so that I can attend a function. But we're going to have a great guest on today, David Friedman from the Marijuana Investors Summit that will be held at the Crowne Plaza Hotel on April the 20th through the 22nd. We're going to talk all about that in the second half of the show. A lot of people, of course, will be going up to Denver to celebrate the 420 celebration that weekend, and so this might be interesting for anybody that, of course, wants to get into the cannabis industry, which is a multi-gazillion dollar industry, and over the next few years, it's just absolutely exploding. And so we'll be doing that in the second half, but first, as always, I've got news for you.
I've got news for you.
So this week, this is a press release from the Drug Policy Alliance. U.S. Justice Department says it will ignore federal law and prosecute people for medical marijuana despite congressional spending ban. Congress passed one-year amendment in December prohibiting the Justice Department from undermining state medical marijuana laws. Members of both parties sought to stop prosecutions and let states set their own medical marijuana policies. Drug Policy Alliance calls on President Obama to rein in out-of-control prosecutors. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, told the Los Angeles Times that a bipartisan amendment passed by Congress last year prohibiting the DOJ from spending any money to undermine state medical marijuana laws doesn't prevent it from prosecuting people for medical marijuana or seizing their property. The statement comes as the agency continues to target people who are complying with their state medical marijuana law. The insubordination is occurring despite the fact that members of Congress in both parties were clear that their intent with the amendment was to protect medical marijuana patients and providers from federal prosecution and forfeiture. The Justice Department is ignoring the will of the voters, defying Congress and breaking the law, says Bill Piper, director of the National Affairs for the DPA. President Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder need to rein in this out-of-control agency. 23 states in the District of Columbia have laws that legalize and regulate marijuana for medicinal purposes. 12 states have laws on the books regulating cannabidiol, CBD oils, and a non-psychotropic component of the medical marijuana, which some parents are utilizing to treat their children's seizures. 4 states in the District of Columbia have legalized marijuana for non-medical use. Well, that's also called adult use, isn't it? Last May, Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, a Democrat Congressman Sam Farr, offered an amendment to the spending bill prohibiting the Justice Department from spending any money in 2015 to prevent states from implementing their own state laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, and cultivation of medical marijuana. Members of both parties took to the House floor in opposition to the prosecution of medical marijuana patients and providers and in defense of states settling their own marijuana laws without federal interference. The Republican-controlled House passed the amendment with most Democrats and 49 Republicans approving it. The amendment was backed by the Senate Republican Senator Rand Paul, Democratic Senator Cory Booker, and made it into the final Cromnibus, I don't even know that word, bill that was signed by President Obama in December. The spending restriction applies to the fiscal year of 2015 spending. Advocates say that even though the spending restrictions is a good restriction, the Department of Justice actions show the need for changing federal law. Last month, Senators Rand Paul, Cory Booker, and Kirsten Gillibrand of New York and Dean Heller introduced bipartisan legislation to legalize marijuana for medical use. The Compassionate Access, Research, Expansion, and Respect States, that's Careers Act, is the first ever bill in the U.S. Senate to legalize marijuana for medical use and most comprehensive medical marijuana bill ever introduced in Congress. Representative Steve Cohen of Tennessee and Representative Don Young of Arkansas introduced a House version of the bill last week. Congress should respond to the Justice Department in its subordination by changing federal laws, said Piper. Patients and the people who provide them with their medicine will never be safe until states are free to set their own marijuana policy without federal interference. Also on the government side of things, this is from thedailycaller.com, written by Jonah Bennett. Did the federal government just admit that marijuana can shrink serious brain tumors? And this is from the 2nd of April, just a couple of days ago. And, of course, you know, they've admitted it before, at least in their patent of cannabis, and what their U.S. has patented, and they admit that it's good for all kinds of different afflictions and diseases. So anyway, this is an article. The National Institute on Drug Abuse, a research institution run by the federal government, has grudgingly admitted that marijuana is capable of killing certain cancer cells. A publication from NIDA, revised as of April 2015, states that, quote, recent animal studies have shown that marijuana can kill certain cancer cells and reduce the size of others. Evidence from one animal study suggests that extracts from, get this now, whole plant marijuana can shrink one of the most serious types of brain tumors. Research in mice showed that these extracts, when used with radiation, increased the cancer-killing effects of the radiation. In effect, it constitutes an admission from the federal government that marijuana has medicinal value. This admission comes at a time when steam is building in the Senate for the Compassionate Access, Research, Expansion, and Respect States Act. Democratic Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey introduced a bill in early March, as we just said a few moments ago. The bill proposes moving cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2, which recognizes on the federal level that marijuana has some medicinal value. While the bill doesn't legalize marijuana in any state, it permits states to set their own policies free and clear of federal raids. Additionally, it would allow the Department of Veterans Affairs and doctors to treat patients with the drug. It couldn't be any clearer that marijuana has medicinal value, says Tom Angle, chairman of the Marijuana Majority, told the Daily Caller News Foundation, when even NIDA and the Surgeon General are acknowledging that marijuana can help people who are suffering, it is time for the Obama administration to reschedule the drug. The Attorney General can initiate that process today, and there's no reason for him not to, especially when polling shows that such a huge majority of Americans support medical marijuana. Earlier in February, 37-year-old Surgeon General Vivek Murthy stated, quote, "We have some preliminary data showing that for certain medical conditions and symptoms that marijuana can be helpful. I think that we have to use that data to drive policy making." Murthy was confirmed as Surgeon General in December of 2014 by a 51-43 vote. So that's good news. It sounds like the federal government is coming around, but you know what? They got to act very quickly. And so we have some other news for you. The Lieutenant Governor from California, Gavin Newsom, is very outspoken, and we don't talk about California that much, but we should, and we'd love to get some calls from California as well. California, if it wasn't for California in 1996 being able to legalize medical, none of this would have happened. They are, ground zero for making this plant come alive to the public. So here is Gavin Newsom, Lieutenant Governor of California, talking about legalization.
How long before we realize that drug addiction isn't a crime, it's a disease? There never was, and dare I say, never will be a society free of drugs, as much as we'd like there to be. So it's time for all of us to step up and step in and lead once again in California, just as we did in 1996. Remember, we did just that with medical marijuana. We were the first state in this nation, but for almost 20 years now, we've sat back admiring our accomplishment, while the world, the nation, and states like Colorado and Washington have passed us by. I made it clear last year, almost to the day, as I stood here before this very body, that it's time to legalize, it's time to tax, it's time to regulate marijuana for adults in California. But we have to start with a serious dialogue, This issue cannot get caught up in the Nixonian trap of calling people's names whose values we do not share. This is a serious debate for serious people. This is not a debate about hippies. This is not a debate about stoners. We can't diminish this issue or the people involved in this debate by belittling them and trivializing them. Let me be clear. You can be pro-regulation without being an advocate for drug use. I have 3 young, extraordinary children, and I am not an advocate for recreational drug use. Quite the contrary. My children are lucky, however, like so many of your children, that when they skin their knees, mom and dad are there to help make it better. But other children, sadly, are not so lucky. Think about this. Tonight in this country, when you go to bed, over 1 million children will go to bed themselves with at least one of their parents in jail or prison for a nonviolent drug offense. That's 1 million children. Tonight, they can only dream about getting a hug from mom and dad, because the harsh reality is the next time they see that parent will be through clear, bulletproof glass or behind bars. That's the real cost of a slow learning curve on the war on drugs, the human cost. The cost of a parent. The cost of a parent being separated from a child because of a nonviolent drug offense that carries a ridiculous mandatory minimum. The cost of a child growing up in a single-family home because somewhere along the line we thought it was smarter to prosecute a father rather than educating that father. The cost of an inconsolable parent who must cope with the loss of a child to a drug overdose because we care more about defining drugs as a criminal issue rather than a health care issue. That's why I've joined. I'm passionate about this. I really am. That's why I joined forces with the ACLU to form a Blue Ribbon Commission to research and to analyze and educate the public in an effort to ensure that if and when marijuana is legalized in California, it could be done safely and effectively and implemented in a way that maintains our health, our well-being, and our safety in diverse communities. It's time to get past our reactionary fears about drugs. It's time we implement policies rooted in science, developed with compassion, framed as health issues instead of criminal issues, because that's exactly what they are. And once and for all, it's time we realize that the war on drugs is nothing more, too often than not, is nothing more than a war on communities of color and on the poor. It's time fundamentally for drug policies that recognize and respect the full dignity of human beings. We can't wait.
So, unfortunately, we have to wait a little bit in California because Gavin Newsom's boss, Jerry Brown, who was governor back when I lived in California back in the 70s when he tried to decriminalize marijuana, and he actually did, is now against legalization. I don't know what happened to Jerry Brown, but I guess we're going to have to wait until he's out of there for Gavin Newsom to get in and legalize. Don't know what's going on. We should talk to some people in California about that. And this next report is still about California. This is the consequences of legalizing of marijuana in California. This report.
Is California ready for the legalization of marijuana?
One of the state's top elected officials says we should be looking at the ways it will be managed and regulated before voters are asked to make a decision. KUSI Sasha Fu is here with more tonight. Sasha?
Lauren and Alan, advocates for legalizing marijuana are trying to bring a ballot measure to the voters of California next year. But you know that old expression, the devil is in the details? Well, a prominent state official who is also a supporter of legalizing pot says we need to consider what laws and additional safeguards will be required if pot becomes legal for general use. Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom wants the public to weigh in on how the state should regulate, tax, and manage marijuana if it becomes legal.
Gavin Newsom is recognizing that this policy, the prohibition of cannabis, is no longer working for citizens across the country and California as well.
The lieutenant governor led a blue ribbon panel funded by the ACLU to study some of the issues that will have to be resolved if voters say yes to recreational pot. Some of the questions involve how to prevent access by children and teens, the impact on public safety, and how sales of pot should be taxed by the state.
We know how to regulate substances. We've done it with prescription drugs. We've done it with alcohol.
Rachel Scoma is an attorney who worked on the 2010 initiative to legalize marijuana, which voters rejected. If approved in 2016, the state will have to set up new DUI policies for marijuana. She says pot stays in a person's system for days, even weeks. So defining a hard and fast blood limit won't work.
I'd like to see sobriety tests done in the field to show whether or not you're under the influence. I think that can take care of the situation.
Scoma favors marijuana use only for those 21 and older, with the same restrictions for keeping other substances away from minors.
I think it's the way we keep poison out of the hands of children, the way we keep alcohol out of the hands of children.
I think putting 21 as a standard. We've always, I think people who've advocated for the legalization and decriminalization of marijuana have said, how is it any different than alcohol?
Patrick Dudley is a defense attorney who's handled many medical marijuana cases. He says, just like other consumer products, proper labeling should be required for properties such as the drug's potency.
How much THC, for instance, is in the product.
In states like Colorado and Washington, legalization has produced millions in tax revenue. Dudley thinks that marijuana should be taxed just like booze and cigarettes to help offset the costs of regulating it.
They're going to have people who are enforcing these new laws on the books as far as marijuana goes, and that certainly is a consideration when you talk about taxation.
The same questions raised by Newsom and his panel are bound to be raised by millions of Californians if the measure to legalize marijuana makes it to the ballot by 2016.
Before there's any laws on the books, let's put in there whatever we need to address, have these debates now, and I think that's a fruitful way of dealing with these things.
Well, those who oppose legalization obviously have a quite different point of view here. That group includes the governor of California, Jerry Brown, and California Senator Dianne Feinstein. The panel which conducted this particular study will be holding a series of forums seeking public comment. That is before issuing a final set of recommendations this summer. And you can bet we're going to hear both proponents of the legalization and people who are going to say, no, it's a bad idea.
Yeah. People feel very strongly about this.
They do.
More to come. Sasha, thank you.
So that's from California, and hopefully they can get their act together because they really did start it all. Now, moving over to Colorado, which started, along with Washington, started the adult use, which really changed the game. Denver is going to shutter non-commercial pot grows. So there's still a lot of controversy with the way the medical was set up and the caregiver system. And here's this report from Denver.
Under Colorado law, you can get marijuana in a store or you can grow it at home. There's a third option people talk about less often, which is using a caregiver. They can grow pot on behalf of medical marijuana patients. 9 News political reporter Brendan Ritteman tells how some of them are getting unwanted government attention.
In this Denver warehouse, caregivers grow pot for medical marijuana patients. Patients like 15-year-old Colton Turner.
Eventually, I wound up in a wheelchair, and because I had zero energy, I couldn't stand up for longer than a minute.
He's out of that wheelchair now. Colton and his entire family moved here from Illinois so he could get marijuana for severe Crohn's disease. As he was laid up in bed at the Mayo Clinic, the staff said they could remove part of his colon and stunt his growth. They could try prescriptions with a high risk of lymphoma, or
they said, you know, try holistic treatments, try alternative methods. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they were like, well, you know, just research a little bit what's going on in Colorado.
Now he takes 4 capsules a day filled with marijuana oil that has compounds you don't find in most pot. On the flip side of this, the city of Denver says it's seen problems when caregivers band together for large grows, unsafe chemicals, overloaded wiring, and other fire hazards. The city council is debating an ordinance to break it all up. 1 caregiver, 1 building. We're inside of a 16,000 square foot warehouse in Denver full of marijuana plants. If the ordinance were to pass, they'd be limited to 36 plants for the entire facility. That makes this warehouse pretty worthless. This 1 grow room alone has 50 plants.
The city's been out here, the city's inspected it. Most importantly, the city's approved it.
Caregivers say the city can always shut down grows that violate the fire code. They think this is more about the city's other argument, that caregivers cut into the business of the licensed pot shops.
It's the same old story. Let's put the mom and pop shops out of business. We want the entire pie.
The city argues the caregiver law was never meant to create large grows in the first place, and they hope to vote soon on a law to keep them small. Brandon Ritteman, 9 News.
So, you know, also with legalization, there's always some people that are doing the wrong thing. And this next report from Colorado is about a massive pot trafficking bust that included 13 grow houses. So, I mean, the government of Colorado and the federal government now has allowed us to go into the cannabis industry and to do things legally. But of course, there's always going to be the black market. And of course, this time, they got effed up. Here we go.
Story right now, these 32 people, they're all accused of playing a part in the largest pot bust since marijuana was legalized in our state. We were there earlier this year as police busted several of those operations. Local law enforcement calling us essentially the black market for the rest of the country. Well, 7 News reporter Jennifer Kowaleski is live where one of those busts happened. And Jen, some of the details from those busts just coming out now.
And these guys were bold, accused of using skydiving planes and cars to traffic tens of thousands of pounds of pot out of state. The group had a total of 13 warehouses across Denver, including this one behind me. Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman calling this the largest and most sophisticated case ever uncovered in Colorado. According to this affidavit, ringleader Trey Trung Nguyen, with help from his wife and 30 other people, allegedly ran a massive illegal marijuana distribution network. The group claimed they were marijuana caregivers. Most of the pot ended up on the streets in Minnesota. The AG's office says most of the 32 have been arrested. Kevin Wong works for the Rocky Mountain High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Agency. It's his job to gather statistics about the legalization of weed. He says our pot is showing up in states across the country.
There's oversaturation of Colorado marijuana across the United States. Colorado has essentially become the black market. We are the suppliers for a large portion of the United States.
Now, the affidavit also says their goal was to use our legal pot laws to essentially hide in plain sight. It's estimated the group made $12 million during their 4-year run. Live in Denver tonight, Jennifer Kowaleski, 7 News.
So there's always going to be a black market. I think we know that. But of course, you take your chances, you're going to have to pay the price, and those people are going to pay a price. Also paying a price for legalization is the medical marijuana program and regulations in Oregon, which just became a adult use state as well. And here is this report from the great state of Oregon.
We are just a couple months away from recreational marijuana becoming legal in Oregon, and there are now some big questions about the future of medical marijuana. This week, lawmakers will consider 2 bills that would strengthen regulations on the industry. KGW's Ashley Korslund joins us live from a medical marijuana dispensary in Southeast Portland with more on what this means for the patients. Ashley?
Well, good evening, Nina. Those 2 bills will be up for a public testimony, a public hearing tomorrow afternoon in Salem. But we wanted to know what people think about them. So we went to the convention center to Oregon Hemp Fest to check it out.
This is our new dispensary.
Business owners like Jay Baker depend on the growth of marijuana.
The name of my company is Fresh Buds, a medical marijuana dispensary.
Like many in the medical industry, Baker is keeping his eyes on what's happening at the state capitol. Lawmakers say the passage of recreational pot in Oregon drew attention to the state's widely unregulated medical industry, and they say it's time for a change.
We are at great risk from the federal government if we don't show that we are keeping it out of the black market.
Senator Ginny Burdick says a big portion of medical marijuana ends up there. Growers produce more than their demand, and the extra product winds up in the black market. So she's supporting 2 bills that would put a cap on the number of plants growers can produce and also develop a tracking system for the drug so the state knows where the pot is coming from and where it's going. Growers like Ken Kovash agree that the medical side of pot should be regulated.
We think it should be highly regulated. If people are ingesting something and they're using it for medicine, they're using it to cure a disease, it should be just as safe as you get from a pharmacy.
But Kovash says putting a limit on growers' plants is only going to hurt those who need marijuana the most.
The numbers right now allow growers to give their patients reasonably priced medicine, if not free. So it's going to drive a lot of the patients to the recreational market. And like we see in Washington, it's $35, $40 for a gram of subpar marijuana.
Senator Burdick says medical patients have nothing to fear. Keeping their access is a top priority. She says the legislation would allow small growers to stay medical, keeping prices low for customers. But large-scale growers would have to get a recreational license. Now, again, that public hearing set in Salem tomorrow at 5 p.m. Lawmakers tell me that after that hearing, they will likely go back to the drawing board, pick the best parts from each of those proposed bills, and likely combine it into just one bill. But of course, this is a long ways off from becoming voted on and then essentially, eventually, possibly becoming a law. Nina, back to you.
So obviously, with legalization comes lots of restrictions, and of course it needs to be worked out because there's a lot of people that would like to get into this industry and make a good living and make their fortunes, just like the .com era. But of course, a lot of stuff has to be worked out. Now, if you want to get into this industry, you want to be an investor, you want to be an entrepreneur, right after this break, we're going to have David Friedman from the Marijuana Investors Summit, and we're going to talk all about that. Now is your chance to get into the cannabis industry. We'll be right back.
It's all about the 420 MMJRadio.
I'm Robert Platshorn with Marijuana Facts from the Silver Tour.
A new Florida study in the Journal of Molecular and Cellular Neuroscience found that cannabis can slow the effects of Alzheimer's and may in fact be able to halt it entirely. A University of Ohio study showed that people who use marijuana get Alzheimer's at a much lower rate than non-users. Learn more and support the truth at thesilvertour.org. That's thesilvertour.org.
Hi, as you know, over the next few years, the cannabis industry is going to explode into a multi-million-dollar industry. 420webdesign.com is your affordable design provider. 420 Web Design prides themselves on fair prices and a grounded staff. They listen to their entrepreneurs' website needs. Getting into the marijuana industry doesn't need to break your bank. Our sites come with tons of features. Just a few of them include responsive designs for mobile viewers, easy to update platforms, built-in SEO and SMO tools, enterprise-level security, video tutorials, database backups, Google Maps, onboard analytics, and much more. This is backed by a decade of website design and development experience. For all of your 420 web design needs, go to 420webdesign.com. Again, 420webdesign.com. Check them out.
Have you ever had a problem with overcooking your cannabis oil? You probably wanted to rip your hair out when you burned off all the THC, right? I even cried one time when my brownies failed to make a good impression at the party. Well, I stopped crying when I found Magical Butter. Magical Butter is a device with a microprocessor-controlled program sequencer. It was designed by a scientist and a chemist to precisely extract the benefits of various herbs. Magical Butter easily makes botanical butter, oils, tinctures, lotions, sauces, and more. Magical Butter heats your oil and your herbs at the perfect temperature every time. Check us out at magicalbutter.com because it's magical. Okay, there's a lot of science and chemistry involved, but it sure works like magic.
Again, for your tinctures, butter, and oils, that's magicalbutter.com. This is a great appliance. Use coupon code LOVE to get $20 off.
This is Robert Platshorn with Marijuana Facts from the Silver Tour. According to the DEA's administrative law judge, Francis L. Young, marijuana in its natural form is one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man. In strict medical terms, marijuana is far safer than many foods we commonly consume. Learn more and support more education at thesilvertour.org. That's thesilvertour.org.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show.
Okay, we're back and we're on with David Friedman from Marijuana Investors Summit that will be at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Denver, Colorado, April 20th through the 22nd. David, welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio. How are you today?
I'm terrific. Thanks for having me.
So give me a little background about how you got started in the cannabis industry and tell us all about what's happening at the Investor Summit in Denver.
Sure. So I got involved in the cannabis industry through my ex-girlfriend, who's also now a business partner in the business, whose son went out to Colorado to work at Open Vape. And one day we were sitting around and she said, "You got to figure out how to make us money in this marijuana business." And the next day I just decided I was going to do it. But I've been in venture capital and private equity for a long time, so I had a couple different platforms like anybody else coming into the business that I could leverage. So media happened to be one of them. We have a company that does online publishing. We still have one dinosaur print publication left that we run on a monthly basis, and it was a good way for us to get in the business. Mm-hmm. It was a great entry point, and that was a year ago, and it feels like it's a lifetime now.
So what hit you first as far as when your ex-girlfriend and now partner said to you, how can we make some money? Was the first thing media that hit you?
No, it wasn't. The first thing that hit me was more on the financial side. My initial entry point was through the ArcView Group, which I still belong to, and one of the magazines we own is Futures Magazine, which is for traders. And I was really interested in whether or not we could create a futures market for cannabis as a commodity. It turns out that's not feasible for a number of reasons. You get into something and then you realize it doesn't work and then you pivot. It's just too hard. The same way tobacco futures aren't traded. There's too many strains. You can't settle the contract, but it opened up a door to heaven.
Well, there has been in the past in California, I think some middlemen who would supply the dispensaries by knowing what's available on the market. So that's sort of like a futures thing. And do you think that there can be a futures market in the future, so to speak? Maybe right now it's a little bit hard to do.
Yeah, there'll be a derivatives market. Futures are one of the derivatives. There's options. There's some exchanges that are popping up. They don't have an approved product that they're trading like an actual contract, but what they're doing is they're making markets, they're gathering data. Some of them are taking brokerage fees, what they're not supposed to do, but like everybody else, it's like, they have to do something to make money. So some of them are skating the line, but there will be a market in that. And, that's one of many markets that there are going to be that you see in other industries that are going to proliferate into cannabis.
So on April the 20th through the 22nd, you're having your summit in Denver at the Crowne Plaza Hotel. Is some of this going to be investors telling people, what they're looking for, and then I guess the people that want to people to invest in their businesses will be the people that you want to come to this summit, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's our first year branding. It was kind of an exercise. I think we did a good job. We'll probably expand it. Towards the middle, we expanded it to the Marijuana Investor Summit and Business Expo. And we're really combining all elements of commerce, legal commerce through the marijuana industry. There's investors that are going to be there. There are exhibitors that are companies that want to exhibit their wares and their products. And there's entrepreneurs that are there seeking capital. And a lot of them cross over. A lot of the entrepreneurs become investors. The entrepreneurs who are seeking capital sometimes are also investing capital. It's all over the board, but it's a big networking event, and it's centered around education, and education about the opportunities and the risks, and just as importantly, if not more importantly, the risks of the cannabis industry. And what do you do if you want to make money in this business? Do you start a company, invest? How do you handle it?
Yeah, I know that the investor market, as far as buying stocks, is very volatile right now. How long do you think that'll take to sort of stable out? Because I'm seeing very large fluctuations, day by day and week by week.
Yeah, so we actually just signed an agreement to merge with the marijuana index, and it's a really interesting question because I haven't spent a lot of time on the public market. But obviously, it's a big part of the market. And with this acquisition or this merger now, I have to learn it. But what I know is this. I've been in, public market finance, and I've held a Series 7, and I've traded stocks. And these stocks are all traded on the pink sheets. And the pink sheets are very, very difficult to manage. There's no analyst coverage on it. And so until there's really credible analyst coverage on it, you won't see it get traction. You can't create an ETF off of it or anything like that just yet, but eventually you will. And it's going to take some of these companies getting uplisted or doing real IPOs onto a NASDAQ or an S&P so that you can aggregate around it. But that's not to say that some of these companies that are public won't make it. I've gotten to know a lot of these guys who are running these companies. And, the way they've done it with reverse mergers is a path to liquidity or gives them capital to build, and it's one strategy. It's a tough one, though, and it's a tough market. The pink sheets are unregulated. It's a cesspool, and you got to be careful. And Alan Brockstein's going to be there. He's the guy. He knows more about stocks in this market. There's a few up-and-comers, too. He's going to give a session and talk about it. We have a number of other, we don't have anything else specifically on stocks, but there will be a lot of stock people there just kind of networking.
Now, I noticed that you have Kevin Harrington, a former shark from the Shark Tank. Now, I love the Shark Tank. I've learned so much by watching that show. just how to negotiate. It's really quite brilliant. Now, is he interested in investing into the cannabis industry, or is he there to talk as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so he's going to give the keynote as an investor, and just somebody who's generally got business sense, and he was cannabis friendly, I would say. He's not interested in the industry per se, but he's an investor, and he is going to sit. We are going to do a Canna-Pitch, which is our version of a Shark Tank, and he'll be on the panel along with a number of other guys that will be permitted to make a live investment. We have no idea if anybody will, but it's set up properly, and so he may. Nobody's obligated, especially him.
Sure.
But I've only talked to him once. We went through his agent, but he's a good, smart guy who was willing to learn a little bit about the business and prepare a keynote for it, and I'm looking forward to him.
Fantastic. And what other highlights would you say are going to be at this particular summit?
Yeah, there's something for everyone. We're doing one session with just the 4 most prominent nonprofits in the industry. You've got SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, NCIA, National Cannabis Industry Association, MPP, Marijuana Policy Project, and DPA, which is the Drug Policy Alliance. And the 4 organizations are each going to have one person, and they're going to share the floor for 45 minutes or 50 minutes just to talk about the mission and what they do. It's called Investing in Your Investment. So that's one swing all the way to the end over there. And then some real hardcore stuff, valuation methodologies, where to find deals, what's the right investor for your seed round, who are strategic investors, things like that. Some of this is just basic blocking and tackling around investing in entrepreneurship, because for a lot of people, this is their first rodeo, and so they've never learned the basics. So we're kind of combining that as well.
It's really everybody's first rodeo. We're all pioneers breaking into this business. It's really exciting. I've been waiting a long time myself. I'm going to be 65 in a few months, and I started handing out legalization leaflets in the early 70s in Los Angeles, and it's been a long go to get to this point, and it really is very exciting. Now, I've been an investor for the last 10 years or so in domain names for this industry. What do you think that part of the industry is going to be like in the recent in the recent future that's coming?
Yeah, I used to be in that industry. The game's changed a little bit. It's not enough to just own domains now. You almost got to get them up and running with some basic content so they start to build. You need a year in with a domain name for it to have any SEO value. So people would almost rather buy a bad domain with more SEO value than a good domain with no SEO value. So you just got to kind of get them up and running. But that's not too far off from what we're doing. We've got a bunch of digital media properties. So basically we have a bunch of domain names and we just take them to the next level. So I don't think it's going to be like it used to. At the same time, I think it's 2 to 3 years from now when people start to rush in. It's not a bad way to cash in. You have to carry those costs. It's $12 a year. If you got 1,000 of them, that's a few car payments.
Yeah, but if you make one sale for $20,000, your $12,000 is pretty well covered.
Exactly, as long as you do that once a year, how many you carry forward. But I've seen those strategies work, and I don't think it's a bad investment if you own a portfolio of domain names. I think it's not too far from now where, you already got secondary markets. I mean, you can put them up for auction right now.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. How do you feel about maybe not selling them but leasing them?
That's a really smart move, because somebody else will build the brand equity in the SEO, and then it's like owning intellectual capital down the road. If somebody will lease it from you and give you a small margin and you've got hundreds of them or something like that, yeah, I'd do that in a heartbeat. A little bit of money and a little bit of cash, and
sure.
Even if they fail, they're building SEO value for you.
Yeah, I just feel that a domain name in our industry, in many industries, is really part of your advertising. This is what gets people to a website, for instance. And I've been lucky enough, I think, to have purchased some really interesting ones that I'll talk about with you maybe later after we finish this particular interview.
Absolutely.
But so tell me the cost. It's going to be the 20th through the 22nd. Do you have daily fees to get in, and then a package for the whole event?
Yeah, so the answer is yeah. There's a few different things. We threw a lot of stuff at this on purpose. We want to see what works. We want to get a good data sample. So there's an all-day pass, or there's a 3-day pass for all the sessions generally and everything. That's $695. There are some boot camps on Monday only that are pretty inexpensive. They're $195 a piece. There's one for investors, one for entrepreneurs. It'll be a half-day intensive, 4 specific sessions. 4 for each group, 4 for the entrepreneurs, 4 for the investors. And actually, I think the last session, they're going to come together. Those are $195 a piece. And then just the pitch session with Kevin is $95 if you just want to come, and you can go to the Expo Hall to,
Really? So if you want to pitch Kevin an idea for this industry, for $95 you can give a pitch?
No.
What are you saying?
For $95 you can watch the pitch.
Oh, watch the pitch.
Yeah. We've got, I don't know how many companies. We've narrowed it down to, I think, 4 or 5, and I think we're going to put 2 or 3 on stage. My partner's been working on it for better part of 2.5 months. There's a whole team that's just been vetting these plans because we want to put good ones up there. So we wanted to vet them. We want to coach them a little bit, make sure that it's viable so that there actually could be investments that happen.
Now, I see you are going to have Trip Keebler from Dixie speak. And now the edible industry is huge. I mean, at the same time that, from what I read in Colorado, sales are extremely high and more than actually the smoking products on edibles. There's also so much controversy about packaging and labeling and so forth. Is Trip going to be speaking to that kind of stuff?
No, I let Trip speak to what he wanted to speak to because he's so prolific, and you're always better off letting a guy like that talk about what he's passionate about, and that could change. He's obviously an expert. His director of marketing is going to be speaking on some branding stuff and things like that, and they'll definitely get into some packaging and things like that. Trip's going to talk about something that's really interesting right now, which is the market saturation and the dangers of entering the market right now. The days of the green rush and running out to Colorado to stake your claim, 40 acres in the mule, and throw a couple of seeds in the ground, and boom, you're a marijuana farmer. The prices are coming down rapidly in those geographic markets. You'll see the same thing happen again in Washington, probably Oregon, as they go through their cycle. And he and Ian Sieb, who's co-owner of Denver Relief Consulting, and Denver Relief is one of the more prominent dispensaries out in Denver. And they're going to talk about, if you want to come out and do this, be careful, know what you're getting into. Don't throw your last $10,000, $20,000 at this chance at glory while the market's crashing. It's not crashing, but it's equalizing, and it's a totally different experience. So that'll be interesting. And Trip Keebler's a very bright guy and a very well-known guy, and we're glad to have him.
Yes, I mean, he's been so prominent, since Dixie came, into the media a couple of years ago. I actually was managing a dispensary here in Santa Fe for a couple of years, and I was the first one to bring Dixie products, which was the Dixie X products, of course, because that's the stuff with no, the low THC that they're allowed to ship across state lines. So I did bring some of those things in, and they were doing quite well. So we're all, I've been saying this a million times on my radio show, we're all pioneers in this industry. We're riding from the seat of our pants, and we have to be able to make right turns and left turns and go forward at the click of a finger, because there's no path that has been blazed before. So that's what's really so interesting about this industry that I personally have been waiting over 47 years for myself. So how can people get tickets?
Well, the best way is just to go to marijuanainvestorsummit.com. You'll have all the information there. There's some tours we've packaged with World Cannabis Week. They're our strategic partner. They're running some dispensary and grow tours. There's a party at night. There's going to be a couple of different things going on at night as well. But that's the best place to go. There's ticket options there, and you can read about all the speakers and sessions and kind of map out your experience.
Now, a lot of people want to get into the growing aspect of the cannabis industry, and that's probably one of the tougher parts of the industry as far as I'm concerned, because everybody thinks they can grow. But, there's certainly a difference between growing 4 plants and 12,000 plants like MedMan, I think, has ramped up to. So will there be someone talking, is Andy Williams going to talk about that kind of thing, about growing and how to set up a big grow?
Yeah, they're going to do a dispensary panel. Like I said, there's 70 speakers, so off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think I have Chris Crane scheduled to moderate that, although I have to get in touch with him and let him know. And Andy and a couple other guys will be on there. And then we're also doing a Pot Barons lunch. So they'll all be there from the show. And then Gary Cohen, the producer, is going to be there as well, hosting the lunch. So that's free for anyone who attends.
So would you say that this summit is more for people wanting to get into the cannabis industry as a whole, being it adult use or medical, or is it more adult?
Yeah, it's the consumption, the medical versus recreational is kind of agnostic to our philosophy. It's about investment opportunities. That covers anything and everything. There could be some segmentation, and I should mention that we're partnered, and it's a shame on me for not doing this. We're partnered with MMJ, and they're doing a separate conference that starts on the 19th in our space. They're going to do it the 19th and the 20th. I don't know that much about it. I've been so focused on mine, but my partner Randy Shipley from Canafunder, who's co-producing with us, set it up, and they're going to be there the 19th and the 20th. And they have a similar, it's MMJDenver.com. We're doing everything that we can to try to monetize this and maximize the experience as well as the profits, and so that came about, and maybe next time we'll do it in conjunction, but they'll be on the same site as us, and they'll overlap us for a half a day on Monday, and they have a separate program, and it's really focused on the medical side.
So these events are going to start at what time on the 20th?
Oh boy, so on the 20th, the medical conference actually starts on the 19th, and it goes, from 12 to 6. There's some things going on, and then on the 20th, they're in, 7 a.m. from registration all the way straight through the day, and then we will have a half a day boot camp session that'll be entrepreneur and investor. They'll be together in the last, and then we'll have a networking event after that, and a cocktail party and that type of thing.
Are there some functions at nighttime to keep your participants busy?
Yeah, there's going to be on Tuesday night a band at the hotel with, we budgeted a lot of money, so we're stuck spending a little bit of it, which is kind of fun. So we're going to upscale the food a little bit, I think, and do some carving stations, and there are going to be some other private events going on. A couple companies that are hosting private events that, because they're in the Denver area and all their investors are in town, they can get them all together. So that type of thing will be going on. But that'll go on to, and then also various tours. There will be buses at night on Tuesday taking people to some of the dispensaries are going to stay open a little bit later, and they'll drop them off, and there will be some buses in the parking lot so that people can get driven out to Denver to
sure
consume and buy some stuff and that type of thing.
Absolutely. Well, make sure that you talk to some first-timers about eating some of the edibles, okay? Because
right.
It's again, I managed a dispensary for a couple of years and counseled people. That's one of the things that I do and did. And if someone has a bad experience the first time, they'll never go back. It's really important that newbies have a talking to. So if you want to get tickets, again, you go to what address? Can you purchase it online, your tickets?
Yeah, it's really the only place to purchase it. It's www.marijuanainvestorsummit.com. And there's a tickets page that'll give you all the different options. You can buy, one or more. And quite frankly, we're fully expecting, everybody in this industry has told me that anywhere from a quarter to a half of your gate can come on site.
Mm-hmm.
we're expecting a lot of that as well.
Absolutely. Well, I wish you success with not only this particular summit, but anything that you got going in the future. And again, that's marijuanainvestorsummit.com from the 20th to the 22nd, and then there's another one on the 19th, right before that one at the Crown Plaza Hotel as well. David Friedman, thank you very much, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
See the farmer on the other side of town. He's always working hard till the sun goes down. He's up every morning, right on fire. A white and green seed just to come alive. Well, he don't wear no farm clothes. He's always using a rake and hoe. But his seeds, they're starting to grow like a beanstalk through the sky. He used to live in an apartment in a big old city with thick and pistol windows built right in it. But he decided to move to a little tiny town. He wanna be a farmer all year round. And on a country road where you can't see a thing, he's got 5 acres filled with little green beans. He said he's working so hard all night and day. Mr. Farmer, let me watch your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me water your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me harvest your crops. I wanna have a green thumb too. I said, farmer, 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 I wanna be just like you. See the farmer walking downtown, always drives a crowd when he's around. He's always wearing a city clothes. It shows him all wherever he goes. You can spot him anywhere. Got a bright pink thumb, well he don't care. He said it looks like something from a very factory. Mr. Farmer, let me watch your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me water your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me harvest your crops. Mr. Farmer, let me save your crops. He said, farmer, farmer, farmer. The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show.
Thank you, David Friedman, for talking to us about your summit, the Marijuana Investors Summit at the Crown Plaza Hotel. That's the 20th through the 22nd, with a medical on the 19th, which is a little a co-sponsored little event there on the 19th. So check it out and go to their website and to get tickets, or if you have any questions, you can email them. I want to thank my 2 radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. Don't forget my short little show, Wednesdays with Larawana. Wednesdays with Larawana every Wednesday on CanawanaBuy.com. That's CanawanaBuy.com for all of your either medical, recreational, dispensary, or head shop needs. Great prices, fast shipping, lots of products. That's CanawanaBuy.com. If you have any suggestions for guests, or you want to promote your cannabis industry website or event, info@MMJRadio.com. Again, that's info@MMJRadio.com. If you want to hear replays of this show, you can go to LS Love on YouTube, MMJ Radio, Time for Hemp, 420radio.org, all kinds of places.